we have been blessed to be in this position where we are able to create awareness and serve the humankind. Being in transplant, it gives me tremendous satisfaction when I see somebody who may be dying and then they get a heart transplant and they are up and about. They can go and see their children, grandchildren, start working and earn for their family. It is such a rewarding thing to be this field.
Namaste, Dr. Majid.
Namaskar.
It's my great privilege to have you as my guest on Chat with Chithra. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. It's my privilege. Thank you very much for having me on the show. I know that many prominent personalities have appeared on the show, and it is a great privilege and honor to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you so much. I would like to start off by asking about your early childhood. Which part of India are you from?
I am from Konkan region, which is coastal Maharashtra, western part, and that is
Right.
where I grew up. I went for my primary school. I was there until the age of 6 in that village, and I went to that school as well. So
Right.
initially, I started in a very small school. We used to be on the floor, and it was a Urdu medium school.
Right.
And that's where I started my schooling long time ago. Yes.
Right. So, what is the language you speak?
Marathi, like a Konkani language. I am from Maharashtra, so my native language is like Marathi. And then from there, we moved to Mumbai, and that's where I continued my further education.
Right. Okay. Such a great honor to have known you through my mentor, Dr. Paul Sabapatiji. He speaks a lot about you. He speaks very high about you, and that's how we are today. And I've had this extreme privilege to have a chat with you on a virtual platform, though. Yeah. Thank you.
No, Mr. Sabapati is a great man, and he is such a towering personality and inspiration to all. So I'm thankful to him for introducing me to you.
Absolutely. I have got so many questions regarding, organ donation. To start off with, I want to know, so what is the actual criteria to be a viable donor?
Before I start with the donor, I need to tell you a little bit of transplantation, which why somebody needs a transplant.
Mm.
When somebody has got heart failure, then the heart's function deteriorates and then they end up with heart failure. Their heart is not able to cope. And in this situation, then they are referred for a transplant. It is similar with kidney transplant or liver transplant. When the kidney fails, people go on to dialysis and they are not able to cope, then they are referred for transplant. So transplant is one of the sort of a final treatment for any organ failure. And because it is required in such advanced cases, it depends upon the availability of organs. Now,
Right.
the, there is a shortage of organs. So in if I take my field, which is a heart transplant, the patient they'll be breathless, they will heart failure, swelling of their body, and this tends to be progressive, and eventually the patient can succumb to heart failure. And therefore, before they are in that state, they are referred for a transplant. There are many tests that they need to undergo before they are considered for heart transplant. Because of, we'll come to that in a minute, the shortage of organs, it is very important for us to choose the patient for transplant so that correct patients get the transplant, and then we don't have too many patients dying because they are not getting a transplant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True. Mm. Mm.
So it is fascinating. You asked me where I come from. So when I trained in Bombay, it was Bombay then, now it is Mumbai.
Mm.
So as a heart surgeon, I sort of trained to do heart surgery, and then I came to UK way back in 1996. In that time, my aim was just to learn some advanced heart surgery and go back to India. But when I came to Birmingham, I had the privilege of working in one of the 5 centers in UK which does transplant, and Birmingham is one of them. So here I was in a field, a boy who has come from, you know, a remote village in India, then studied in Bombay, and getting a chance to work in the field of heart transplant.
Mm.
And then I was introduced to these heart failure patients, and that's how my story or journey into heart transplantation started. And
Right.
now we are here discussing about heart transplant just because of that journey. And you are giving me the opportunity to speak about this. So I'm really, it brings back very fond memories of my place, how I was in India, and now what stage I am in. Thank you for that.
That's fascinating and so very inspiring. Dr. Majid, I have also read that the number of organs that are needed is much less than the actual demand for the organs, right? So why is there a gap at all? And I feel personally it is such a noble cause. I also read somewhere that every organ donor is able to, is it deceased organ is able to save at least 8 lives.
That's true. Yeah, it is remarkable that an act of generosity on the part of somebody who is dying, and the relatives then they agree to donate their organs, and that person can save up to 8 or 9 lives, as you correctly said. You previously asked me the criteria as to when somebody can be donor. In this country now, actually anyone can be an organ donor, can sign on the organ donor register. Nowadays we have the opt out where everybody is considered as an organ donor unless and until they opt out. So if somebody needs to be in a hospital when they are dying, because these organs need to be removed in a specified time, which we will talk about it later.
Mm,
So the number of people that are eligible for organ donation is quite small. And also, when it comes to consenting, the number of people that consent to organ donation is much smaller.
mm,
And now this can be because of various reasons, like people can have misconceptions, as you rightfully said, especially our community, our Asian community, have a lot of misapprehensions about organ donation. They consider like our body is a sacred body which is given by the creator, and who are we to decide that we will donate part of our body and then either get buried or cremated. So those are the some of the things. And sometimes some people think that if they donate organs, their cremation and or burial will be delayed. And also some people have mistrust, like
mm.
whether you know the organs that will be taken from my body, whether they will be used to the appropriate person or
Yeah,
not.
true.
And in fact, in that, some people think, if I am an Asian, or suppose I'm a Hindu or a Muslim, will my organ go to a Hindu or a Muslim? Or it can go to anybody else, which are generally, if you see, the Creator has made all of us. If we are able to save somebody's life, it is such a noble act and such a great act. And in that, if somebody thinks of that a religious reason, I think it is a misconception, where I'm sure the Creator will think that you have done such a noble act, and maybe you will get rewarded for that, rather than you thinking that it is not allowed. So the reason you asked me the question, whether why there are so many donors and why so many people require transplant. Now, if I take the condition of a kidney transplant,
Mm,
the number of people that can have renal failure because of a lot of cardiovascular disease, especially in Asian people, there's a lot of diabetes, there's a heart conditions, and that can lead to a renal failure or heart failure. And many people require these transplants, but the number of donors is quite small, and therefore there is a discrepancy between the number of donors and the number of recipients that require transplant. In fact, due to which the number of patients that die because of not available, they are not getting a transplant, is quite high in this country or elsewhere for that matter. So if I say, at a given time, there are about 6,000 patients waiting for kidney transplant,
mm.
and only about 2,000 of them get transplanted every year. So there is a big gap between that. And especially if you consider our Asian people, then a person has to wait nearly a year more than the British person to get a transplant because the matching has to be same. So there are lots of consideration. I'm sorry I've gone into a lot of detail here. To answer your question, why there is a discrepancy, it is because the number of donors is quite small and the recipient requiring a transplant, kidney, heart, or liver, is such a huge number. This education and awareness of transplant and organ donation needs to be done on a wider basis so that this gap can be reduced.
Yeah, you very rightly said, Dr. Majid, lack of trust on the doctors, lack of awareness. And some people might be, as we see and in the movies and also read in the media, what they call it as black marketing, if I may say so. There are so many cases that we hear and we see in the media, right? So it could be that, people are a bit, they feel very insecure, or, there could be some misunderstanding due to religious sentiments, as you rightly pointed out. So these could be the possible reasons as to why people are not coming forward, particularly from the Asian communities.
That's true. We hear from lots of cases about kidney transplant for that matter, like some people have sold their kidneys, and that is possible. Unfortunately, in our Asia, in India and Pakistan, where poor people are drawn into this and they sell their organs to get earn some money. That doesn't happen in this country because of the regulations. And in this country, you can't buy or sell organs. It is only when somebody donates those organs uh, then somebody can get transplanted. So one thing to reassure people from this country that this buying and selling of organs doesn't take place. So we need to tell people that this doesn't happen in this country so that there is more trust. Back in India and Pakistan, I think the governments are doing their best to try and regulate now. I think in India also the transplant has taken off in a big way, and there are many people who are benefiting from transplant. And regulation, the government is doing its best. I think more needs to be done in
Right.
in those part of the worlds, but in this country, definitely there's no buying and selling of organs, and only people when you are donating either a relative or an altruistic donation, which I'll talk about in a minute, then somebody can get a transplant.
Right. Do we have such a process in the United Kingdom and
So
in Birmingham where people can just go and register, while they are healthy?
yes, there is an organ donor register where you can register yourself. And as I said, now there is this opt out law where people are generally considered to be willing to donate unless they decide to go and opt out. Now, I'll talk about the opt out system. You asked me about the donation. So, there are two types of donors basically. One is a living donor and the other is a cadaveric donor. So living donor is can happen in terms of kidney transplant, which is very common in India, also in this country also, where if somebody needs a kidney transplant, a relative can be tested to see if there is matching, because the kidney transplant you need to have a genetic matching between the tissues so that that organ is accepted in a better way and that organ lasts. And therefore,
Doctor, can I
yes,
interrupt here for a
yes.
minute? You said it has to match, the tissues will have to match. So, does that mean that a kidney donation should be only from between families and not otherwise?
No, I mean it's a very good question. Generally, I'm talking about live donation now. So live donation is better done between relatives and a good match. The tissue have to be matched, and therefore it is called HLA matching, and this is widely done now. In the recent past, there is a process by which you can do beyond cross matching, but that is something recent. Mainly, it is the living donors are matched nicely from a relative. Now, that is called a living donor. The second type of living donor is an altruistic donation, where somebody in just comes up saying, I have two kidneys, God has given me two kidneys, and I want to donate one to anybody and anybody who requires it. So that can matching can be done, and that can be donated, that kidney can be donated. And there are such noble generous, altruistic people around in
Mm.
this country as well as in US, where people just come up and say, I want to donate my kidney. It's like donating my part of money to a charitable organization so that somebody benefits. Some people are donating their organs for no benefit to them. That is a second type of living donation. Then the cadaveric donation is something which, when somebody is dying, that these organs can be retrieved and then transplanted to somebody. Now, from the cadaveric donor, as you rightfully said, kidneys, liver, heart, lung, pancreas, all these tissues can be donated. And in this, also the tissues have to be matched so that you can get the better outcome. For kidneys, the HLA matching is done, and then a donor is selected across the country wherever the panel is matched. For the heart, it is usually matched on the blood group and also on the height of the patient, or size of the donor. So there are different criterias of matching. There are different criterias for a living donor and a cadaveric donor. So the
Mm.
cadaveric donor is the one which is more common, and this is what we are talking about, creating awareness that when somebody is about to die, then the relatives, they consent, and then those organs are harvested. I'm one of the surgeons which is involved in this process, which going to the donor hospital and performing the operation. It is done in like a proper operation for a donor, where the donor is taken to the anesthetic room. There is a proper anesthetic in the operating room. There's anesthesia, and this operation is performed in a sterile manner. Complete, care and attention that is given to a patient. That operation is performed, and the organs are then removed and then transported to the recipient hospital.
So is
So
this a very painless process?
so, in terms of cadaveric donor, because all these patients are nearly dead, their brain stem is dead. When the brain stem is dead, the patient generally doesn't feel pain, but they are receiving anesthetic agent. So, this is usually from the cadaveric donor, it is one of the final step, because what we are doing is stopping the circulation and then taking the organs. So, once the heart stops, obviously the patient is no more, and then these organs are taken. So the
Right.
pain, it is done in a very dignified way, and the patient generally doesn't feel the pain of this operation.
Right. And when we talk about organ donations, see, an individual can have a lot of other chronic ailments, right? Mostly Asians are prone to diabetes, hypertension, and other illness. So, what exactly is the criteria for any person, any individual who is willing to donate to be eligible for an organ donation, to donate organs?
So the general criteria that people say is anybody who is willing to donate can register on the organ donor register.
Mm-hmm.
When the time comes when somebody is dying, then the team, which is called the specialist nurses for organ donation, they go through all the history and the general conditions, and then decide whether the kidneys are usable or the heart is usable. So even if somebody has ailment, they can just put forward themselves for organ donation. If they are not useful, those organs will not be removed. So that is rest assured. So we generally say anybody who wants to donate should register for organ donation and not think about that they have diabetes, they have heart disease, this will not be used, that will not be used. That is the sort of job of the team that is involved in organ donation to decide. For heart and lungs, we say if somebody is 70 and below, then only their heart or the lungs can be used. But
Right.
if they are more than 70, then the kidneys and livers are can be used as well. So there are donors who are 85 years of age who have donated their kidneys. So age is not a criteria. It's generally we encourage people to register on the organ donor register. And the most important thing is when you register on the organ donor register is to tell your wishes to the family, because when the donor is dying, obviously they are not able to sign the consent form at that time. So the family is asked whether you want to proceed to organ donation.
Mm.
So it is important that the person who is on the organ donor register lets the family know, so these are his wishes, and then the family can respect their wishes and donate those organs.
And what are the organizations in the UK and particularly in the Midlands that would actually help people or family to go through this process and make them understand? And if they want to register, help them register with this.
So there is the website called NHSBT, or Organ Donor Register, Organ Donation and Transplant, ODT. If you type on the Google ODT, it takes you to that website, and it shows you the ways of registering. It also tells you, how the process takes place, who are involved in this, what organs can be donated, and how are the recipients selected. All information is on this NHSBT, or National Health Service Blood and Transplant. ODT is Organ Donation and Transplant, and that is the organization which sort of regulates all this organ donation in this country. And
Right.
that is one of the organization which has now pushed forward for this opt-out law.
Curious to know, God forbid, if there is a person who was met with a car accident and he's got a brain dead situation, and if his organs will have to be used, is there any particular time limit that by which they have to be removed from that body and taken to the person who really needs it?
Yes, that is very important. A very good question you have asked. I'm sure you have done your homework very well. So if somebody has an accident, they will obviously be admitted to the hospital. They will be in the intensive care unit, where their brainstem test will show that the brainstem death is there, and there is now irreversible damage, and then they can proceed to organ donation. So after that, the organ donation team comes, and then before the heart stops, makes all the process and takes the donor to the operating theater. So when the circulation is stopped, the heart needs to be used within 4 hours. That is, when the circulation stops, the heart stops, till the heart to be started in the recipient, within 4 hours it has to be transplanted. The sooner the better. The lungs, within 6 hours they need to be transplanted. Liver within 8. The kidneys can be transplanted within 16 to 18 hours. So you can imagine that within 4 hours the heart has to be taken to the recipient hospital, and then the surgery performed so that the heart is started in the recipient hospital within 4 hours. So this takes a lot of organizing, lot of resources, and coordination between the organ donation team and the recipient hospital for the organs to work very well. So these things are coordinated very well. Nowadays, there are certain machines available which we introduced in our hospital a few years ago, where the heart can be taken out once it stops in the circulation, taken out and then be put on that machine, and the heart can be restarted on the machine, and it can be then transported in that beating state to the recipient hospital. This allows us more time to transplant. And if we have this machine, then it can be the heart can stay out of circulation for longer, and we can do the transplant operation uh, in a less rushed way. So these are the newer this. Otherwise, these operations, the organs have a finite time out of circulation, and they need to be transplanted as soon as possible. So
Right.
for example, if I give, sometimes if the donor is far away, then we are flown from the Birmingham airport in a small jet plane. And when we reach the donor hospital, from there we perform this operation. We take the heart, and the heart, we fly back to the recipient hospital. This is very organized process, and this is to save the time for the heart or for these organs to stay out of circulation for longer, so that we have the best possible outcome for the recipient, and they do very well after that transplant.
Right. That's very useful information. And I'm also curious, say, if you take out an organ from a donor, would you store it for some time? Is there any storage time, or you just take it out and then you utilize it immediately onto the person, say, as you said, 3 to 4 hours or 4 to 6 hours.
So the organs are only removed if there is a recipient available in the country. So
Ooh.
none of the organs are taken and stored. They cannot
Ah.
be done that. So heart, as I said, within 4 hours, it will be
Mm,
useless if you don't use it. So unless and until we identify a recipient for a heart,
mm,
lungs, liver, kidney, the organs are generally not removed. For kidney, however,
mm.
the kidneys can be removed and kept in that ice box for a period of 16 hours so that a proper recipient can be identified. But for generally for heart, lungs, and kidney, unless until the recipient is identified in a hospital, the organs are not removed. So none of the organs are wasted as such. All the organs that are removed are transplanted.
Mm.
And before taking the organs out, there are lots of tests that we do on the donor to make sure that those organs are working well.
Ah.
We do there's something called echocardiogram to look at the scan whether the heart is working fine. Then we do certain tests such as bronchoscopy to make sure that the lungs are working well. And you see, all these donors are very precious, all these organs are very precious, so all the possible care is taken to make sure that those organs are utilized to the best possible means and the best outcome. So if I give you an example now for heart, if there are say 100 donors in the country which we attend, out of those only 50 we will find that they're usable, because the rest 50, the function will not be good. So you can imagine that if suppose there are 60 million population, then out of them maybe only you know 1000 or 2000 will die in hospital, and out of those, if there are 100 organs, only 50 will be used. So you've asked me the first question, why there are only few donors available and there are so many people waiting for transplant. It is just because of this, that if more and more people opt to donate organs, then we will be able to utilize more organs. It is because of the number of organs, usable organs that we get is very small. That is the reason that many people need to sort of donate organs. The other thing that has happened in the recent past, unfortunately, in our community is because of the misinformation and this really certain religious misconceptions, people have spread the messages that the government is out to take the organs and everybody should opt out rather than opt in to donate organs. Now this is completely misinformation, because the government will not, or nobody will take the organs unless and until the family signs the donation form when the time comes. So as I said, there's a lot of misinformation, and you are doing a very great job of making such interviews so that people get the correct information. I'm grateful for
Right.
that.
In the process, I have learned a lot, reading about this. I feel that, if we have this conversation beforehand with the patients or with the families, I think it would have created more of an awareness. And also, we do have a lot of information on the internet and also in certain selected centers. I feel it would be more effective if we have walk-in centers or conference or little talks so that people are aware about this and what exactly goes through the entire procedure, so that all these myths and rumors, they can try to dispel their fears and make them more confident and make them to register for the donation as such.
Absolutely, yes. You've hit the right chord here. Means, and in the recent past, means I started doing this awareness program way back in 2009, when we used to go to small communities, charitable organizations, mosque, and try and educate people. And that's when I realized that there are so many myths and barriers and religious reasons
Yeah.
why people were thinking in terms of. So that's why we approached lots of imam, and now there are lots of people who are doing a great job, who have contracted the imams, and the NHSBT also has done involved. people from every religion and religious background, ethnic background, so that they can understand what their concepts are. And there are imams or pandits, pujaris, all have been involved in trying to address these issues and come up with the solutions so that our people accept that this is something, it's a noble act of donating this organ and agree to donate the organs.
Yes, it is such a noble cause, and what more satisfaction can we get than helping another life, even if we are not alive anymore? That's such a noble cause, and I feel through these little steps we can try to create more of an awareness, because the amount of information that is available on the internet is just amazing. But for a person who's not from a medical background, in order to understand, and the way how very beautifully you explained it, the entire process, and so many questions that I had in my mind, I mean, they were so very well answered, and I'm sure people who are watching this would also be equally benefited. I
Yeah,
can't thank you enough.
no, no, surely that is our aim in having such conversations and chats. Of course, sometimes such less time, or you are not able to give the complete information. I
Yeah.
hope I have been able to clear some of the doubts. There is lots and lots of things that can be said about this organ donation and awareness, and people, there are lots of videos also available now on the site that I said. They are in different languages. They are in Hindi, Tamil, Bengali, English, and all, Punjabi as well, so
Yeah.
that people can understand this information. And if somebody has doubts, there are people, organizations available who can answer their doubts. What I feel is, serving humanity, reducing the suffering of people. You see, if somebody is on dialysis, it is such a suffering for that patient, because that patient has to go to a dialysis center 3 times a week, sit connected to that machine, and that machine, when the blood is being cleaned, it's such a tedious process. People feel tired during that time, and it is an artificial process. And also, then they can't drink completely because they're not able to pass urine, so they have to take sort of restriction. It is such a suffering when they are in kidney failure, and when they get their transplant, they are back to normal life, and it is like as if they have had a new life. So it's like saving life. What more can generosity act can be when, more than saving life? And that person is somebody's father, somebody's mother, somebody's son, daughter, brother, sister, and then they go back and they can sort of contribute to the community at large. So this is what I not enjoy more, but that gives me the satisfaction of serving the human suffering. I'm sorry, I'm going a little bit tangent, but I need to
Please.
mention that my father, who was a teacher and he understood the value of education, he was a strong patriotic Indian, and he always said, you should serve your own community wherever you are. So I am in this country. Obviously, I cannot serve in Maharashtra, in Konkan region, but here I try to serve our community in here and passing the message of health and all this health awareness, organ donation awareness, so that we are able to alleviate human suffering and do something good. Means
Mm.
we have been blessed to be in this position where we are able to create awareness and serve the humankind. So
Yeah.
being in transplant, it gives me tremendous satisfaction when I see somebody who may be dying and then they get a heart transplant and they are up and about. They can go and see their children, grandchildren, start working and earn for their family. It is such a rewarding thing to be in this field and see so many patients being
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think
rewarded with this.
here, primarily, we are also trying to convey a very important message, Dr. Majid, in order to establish everybody with a healthy lifestyle. There are ways and means wherein we can help out people, but most importantly, if you lead a healthy life and maintain a healthy balance and with your lifestyle, I think all these problems could be minimized also. So I feel there is an important message which is also being subtly conveyed or
That is absolutely, prevention is better than cure. Anytime. I wouldn't wish that anybody suffers, heart failure. We, especially we Asians, are blessed with good looks like Shah Rukh Khan and Salman Khan, but we are also blessed with certain bad genes such as diabetes, heart disease. So we have to balance
yeah,
between both. But with healthy lifestyle, watching what we are eating, exercising, we are able to sort of control those things, and that also message should go out. It's not that when somebody is gone to heart failure that you seek help, but it is prevention is always better than cure. That's a very
yeah.
good message. Yes.
Now, we did talk about transplants, right? Now, is there any particular age limit that we are talking about? What should be the age wherein a person can have such kind of a transplant? I know it depends on his or her medical history, but is there any norm that there is a particular age by which by beyond this it is not safe, or below this it's not safe? Is there any parameter at all?
Sure. No, for a transplant, there are certain babies who are born with congenital heart condition and the heart doesn't work, so they can get transplanted. So there are certain children's condition which the people are born with. They have some corrective surgery, but when they become adult, that heart fails and they get transplanted. So any age from childhood, adulthood, until, I mean, we say 70 in this country is the age for heart and lungs transplant, but the kidney transplant can be beyond 75, 80. It is not a biological age. We don't say, it's not a chronological age. As you know, age can be ageless. It doesn't depend upon outside or the numbers. 70 years of age may be like the internally he's kept so fit that he may be just like 50 or 55 years with no other condition. Generally, as a rule of thumb, we don't go by chronological age. We try and ascertain how the other organs are working, how healthy that person is. Then we consider then for heart or lung transplant. Um,
Right.
but generally, 70 is at the moment in this country. But in US, in certain Europe, 75 years of people also have had heart transplant. There is a US senator who was 77 and he was transplanted. Age is now being sort of is a fluid because of the advances in how the patients are managed. The age, I'm sure the age limit will be going up and up for
Right.
getting transplanted.
Right. That's very useful information. Lastly, before we go to the second segment, I want to know, with the advancement of technology these days, we have the stem cells. Going forward, with the invention of these stem cells, do you think the organ donation is going to be a challenge in the coming years?
Stem cell is a very good technology, and we have started sort of growing cells or tissues in the laboratory. But to grow heart, it might take a while. The human heart,
Mm.
they have, first a small heart like a mouse heart, but to grow a human heart or a lung, it is going to take some time to grow these in the laboratory. Certainly, stem cell will revolutionize the management of the disease, but I think the transplant is there for at least few years now. And also, we have certain machines available like artificial heart now, which is available, which can be used, but still these are few years away. I mean, we have started using artificial heart, but they are not a replacement for a natural heart yet. Still some technology needs to be to advance further to get this. So the newer technologies are obviously a blessing and more work needs to be done on that. But in future, I'm sure people can just go in the boots, buy a heart, and then get it transplanted. So I look forward to those age, that era, but I may not be around to see that though.
Right, right. So that's very, very useful information, Dr. Majid. We now go to the second segment of the chat, which is lighter side of you.
So my examination is over now.
Yes,
Okay.
mission successful. Yes. How would you describe yourself in three words?
Humble, hardworking, and kind.
What is your lifelong dream?
The dreams change when you are a young boy. My dream, there were two dreams. One was to be a great singer like Muhammad Rafi,
Mm,
and second was to be a very successful cricketer. But this was when I was a boy. Obviously, when I grew up, the dreams change, as you know. My dream one day will be to see a world where there will be no suffering, there will be no poverty, and everybody will be happy, live in peace and harmony. We're seeing a lot of religious discord, we are seeing a lot of social discord. My one dream that I always prayed to God comes true, maybe not in my lifetime, hopefully in my lifetime, is all human beings living in harmony and in peace with each other without any hatred against each other.
such a beautiful thought, and I really hope so that your dream certainly comes true.
you know we have lived through difficult time, I mean, especially in India, and now we are seeing a different kind of environment. So I just pray and hope that everybody lives in harmony across the world.
Yeah. What is that one song that you hear most often?
क्या हुआ तेरा वादा,
Yes.
ये वो कसम वो इरादा. That's a song from, I think, यादों की, not यादों, हम किस यादों की बारात, I
Yeah,
think.
Yadon Ki Barat. Yeah,
Yeah,
fantastic.
yes,
That's a classic.
yeah. And also, there's another song which I hear a lot and like it, which
Mhm.
it's in your field, but I can't sing it often. Laga chundri mein daag.
Oh, what a
Mitaun
beautiful
kaise.
song.
It used to be my classic, and I've heard it so many times, that song.
Amazing. Yeah, such a beautiful song. What is your best childhood memory?
When I was young, and we all six brothers and sisters used to stay in a small house in Bombay, and all of us, we used to be together having meals together. My younger sister, who is no more with us now,
Mm.
and all of us used to play together, and that was my is my best memory as yet, especially because we have lost one sister.
How do you define happiness?
Happiness, I think, is a feeling of contentment, and it's able to, when you are able to help somebody in suffering, and the satisfaction you get out of when you see that person's suffering go away,
Mm,
that is happiness to me.
beautiful,
Uh,
beautiful. Yeah. Are
well,
you a
I
leader
mean,
or a follower?
I would say more of a follower than a leader, but in my hospital, I've got a leadership role, but more of a follower, I think.
Right. Chocolate or coffee?
I was going to say neither, because I'm a tea drinker. But if
Right.
since you have asked me chocolate or coffee, I think it will be coffee more than chocolate.
What motivates you?
It's the drive to succeed. I think I feel that I have not achieved what I want in life in terms of my aspirations in order to help people, to help the next generation of my family, and I want to keep going and sort of inspire my next generation of people so that they achieve their dreams.
Four things that you would like to change about yourself.
I think there will be hundreds of things. Obviously, my age would like to be child again. Second thing is I would have rather been in India. There are amenities here, but I would have rather been India, serving my community with my family, and serving those poor people of India. Thirdly, be a better friend. I would like to be a little bit more gentle. Maybe I would like to be more sportsman like a person. I would have liked to be a better sportsman.
Fantastic. What's your favorite food?
Desserts, even if I don't get any proper food and I
Mm.
get my dessert, I'll be happy. Rasmalai and firni and all those.
Your favorite holiday destination?
I think it will have to be South Africa. I have not been there, but I have heard a lot.
So, with this, we come to the end of this very inspiring chat. Thank you so much, Dr. Majid, for your time. It's my great privilege to be speaking to you and know more about, in a nutshell, you have just described it so beautifully, and I'm sure it will be very beneficial to all our viewers as well. And I would like to wish you all the very best. And I look forward to meeting you in person soon after the COVID is all settled.
No, I must say thank you to you, and you're doing a great job of putting such chat shows together on informing people and health awareness. I know you work on improving mental health through music, and it's a great job you're doing. And I'm glad that I've been able to play my part in your wider work.
Nice
And
to
thank
meet
you
you.
very much. And I
Thank you.
just wish you everyone the best, and
Thank you.
especially in this pandemic, I
Yeah,
hope everybody is back to normal as soon as possible. Thank
certainly.
you very much. Okay, namaste. Bye bye.